Frontline stocks clock strong gains. Oil and gas and utilities lead the charge as oil sectors trade with gains. The mid-caps gain in line with frontline indices. Sun Pharma's overseas arm Taro Pharma posts a big improvement in profitability, boosting the stock, but Cipla slips after it pushes back the launch of 2 key generic drugs, even as its vice chair gives up her executive role. High credit costs and low revolver rates in Q3 weigh down SBI Card, while a rise in slippages and deterioration in asset quality spark a sell-off in AU Small Finance Bank. And crude surges to an 8-week high after Houthi missile hits a fuel tanker in the Red Sea. A US GDP growth surprise and growth-stimulating measures in China also aid sentiment. Good afternoon and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Pavitra Parekh. Those are the top headlines that we have for you this afternoon. It is a solid session for the markets. 350 points higher on the Nifty. We're above that 21,700 mark. You know, from the word go, it has been good. We saw around an 85-point gap up, and the market is only built on those gains all through the trading session. For a while, you had the mid-caps which were underperforming, but from the lows of the day, we've seen an over 550-point move on the mid-cap index. So that is also pretty much in step with what's going on with the large caps. But I have to point out some of the larger names which are doing very well today. First, you have that big weight Reliance Industries coming with, a huge move right now. So Reliance will be up on your screen. That one is seeing a big move higher, almost 5% high, 5.5% higher on Reliance. You have the entire oil impact playing out. So names like ONGC, Oil India, all of those doing very well. And once again, it's a PSU day. So a lot of the, Power Grid, Coal India, BPCL, all of those names gaining together. So it's looking very good across the markets. The banks also doing very well. So Kotak, Indices, HDFC, all of those coming up in a big way. In fact, the Nifty Bank Index in itself is up over 600 points right now. So holding up very well. On the downside, there's not too much at all. The IT index is a little bit subdued today. And then you have earnings reactions, because even in this market, you are not seeing the earnings really being forgiven by the market. So AU Small Finance Bank, SBI Card, just some of those names seeing pretty big moves. So that is what's happening across the markets. But Nisha is also here. Nisha, good afternoon. For the markets, it's definitely a good-looking screen.
That's right, Pavitra. So market is probably totally rejuvenated after a long weekend. So let's focus on some of the stocks that have been making news today. AU Small Finance Bank, that slumps 10% in trade in its biggest drop since August 2021, as the asset quality really deteriorates in the third quarter for this particular company. Abhishek is right here to give us the analysis and what's really ailing this stock. Abhishek.
The portfolio of a credit card has actually impacted the asset quality for AU Small Finance Bank this time around. If you take a look at the slippages, in absolute value, it's increased more than 15% on a sequential basis. The annualized slippage ratio is at 2.42% versus 2.18% in the previous quarter. Gross NPA in absolute value is up 7.5% on a sequential basis, about 7.6%. And in terms of gross NPA ratio, it's up 7 basis points on a sequential basis. Take a look at the PNL versus poll. The NI is ahead of our poll. However, the PAT is below our poll on account of elevated provisions that they have done this time around. So we have some brokerages note coming in. They say that they have cut earning estimate on account of credit cost pressure, which may continue in the coming quarters. So that will also impact the ROE or return on equity of the bank. So the best of ROE is behind is what they say. And risk reward is unattractive right now. So we have Citi, who has a neutral rating on the stock. They have cut the target price to 780 per share, and Nomura, who has a reduced rating, they have kept the target price at 600 per share. Back to you.
All right, Abhishek, thanks a lot for getting us all of those details on AU Small Finance Bank. Pretty sharp cut that you're seeing on that one right now. But let's talk about one stock which is really gaining today. That's Adani Enterprises. It's up over 5% after Cantor Fitzgerald has initiated coverage with an overweight rating. Hormaz is here with the details. Hormaz, what are they saying about the stock now?
The first thing that they are saying is that Adani is too big to ignore, and which is why they are initiating coverage with that overweight rating and that price target of 4,368 rupees, which implies a potential upside of 50% from Thursday's closing price. Now, what Cantor Fitzgerald says is that Adani Enterprises is the core of whatever India wants to achieve in the future, and that the current valuation does not reflect all the moving parts in the company. Now, as you know, that Adani Enterprises is not a very widely tracked stock, and it is this lack of analyst coverage is a result of which is acting as a hindrance for investor education, not only with regards to Adani Enterprises but with regards to the whole group. And the note further says that the country needs Adani as much as Adani needs the country. So pretty bullish commentary there as well. Now, when it comes to valuing its businesses, Cantor Fitzgerald is valuing its airport business at 1,622 rupees, the roads business at 1,525, and the solar, wind and electrolyzers business at 1,511 rupees a share. And it says that it is valuing the company based on 3 main businesses, and hence the investors are getting the other 6 businesses of the company relatively for free. And this incubator based approach that Adani Enterprises has is prudent for the company, because going forward some of these businesses will get demerged as the time goes by, and because of this they also say that the risk reward is favorable at current levels, and hence the overweight rating and the stock is up and about in today's session. Back to you.
Oh, yes, that's right, Hormuz. Up and about, and it's the second biggest Nifty gainer in terms of percentage. But Reliance Industries is not too far away, and that big boy heavyweight is also adding in 5% of gains today. But what's under pressure today? Cipla, that's seeing a bad day of trade today after it announced, remember, a likely pushback of the launch of 2 key generic drugs for the US market. In fact, its executive vice chairman Samina Hamid has also stepped down from her role as the company looks to begin and bring in a professional culture and professional management into the company. Ekta Batra is right here to get us all the details. She's been in touch with the management on their third quarter earnings conference call, and also asked about the outlook for the sales in the US market going ahead. Let's all listen in to what they had to say and the perspective for the company going forward.
We've seen a higher amount of albuterol and lanreotide this quarter. I think there is a marginal increase in Revlimid as well, but nothing which is, between last quarter and this quarter, the delta has been hardly 2 to 3 million. At the beginning of the quarter, we had guided that we see a true range a normalized range for this business between 220 and 225. And I think there was some year-end buying, which is very typical of the US in December. Because of the holiday season. And so, I think the way we look at our base business, it pretty much came around that 225-ish mark.
All right, that is the word coming in from Umang Vora of Cipla. But another stock in focus is JSW Steel. Now, they reported a good set of Q3 earnings. The margins and profit both came in above what the street was estimating. And earlier today, we spoke with Jayant Acharya, the joint managing director and CEO of the company, and asked him whether JSW Steel was in talks with Vedanta on their steel unit. Listen in to what he had to tell us.
Interest is more on the mining side of their business, and not as much on the steel side, because it's a smaller steel operation. And we maintain the same thought process today as well. See, that is a part of the discussion which will, I think, emanate over the course of time. But as I said, our focus would be on the mining assets and not as much on the steel assets.
All right, so those are the M&A plans for JSW Steel. And now key indices, NSE, MSCI as well as FTSE will be announcing their reviews in a few days. And Vivek is here to tell us what makes it to the list and what are the likely changes. Tell us, Vivek.
Well, absolutely. So, it's going to be an important month even as far as passive fund managers are concerned. We're talking about February. So, MSCI, FTSE as well as the NSE index managers will be going ahead and reviewing which are the stocks, which are the potential candidates both for inclusion as well as exclusion. So, first, let's take a look at, MSCI list of stocks that could come in. Remember, number one, MSCI will announce the results of the Feb 24 quarterly review on 13th of Feb, and the adjustments will take place on 29th of Feb. Which are the stocks that could come in? Remember, it's very PSU dominated. So the list of stocks include Jindal Stainless, Union Bank, NMDC, PNB, BHEL, and Oberoi Realty. Why are we highlighting this today? Because a lot of these stocks given the fact that the cutoff date would have been sometime last week. A lot of these stocks have probably already made it into the list. IFL estimates, the highest flow could come into Union Bank around 142. BHEL2 could see flows of over $150 million on the back of this particular potential inclusion. We're now talking about the list of stocks that could make it into the FTSE All-World Index. So the ones that we're tracking this time around are Phoenix Mills, Thermax, Suzlon Energy, Jindal Stainless, KPIT Tech, Prestige Estates, Mazgaon Dock and RVNL. The stock that could see the most amount of inflows is actually Suzlon Energy. And again, these are IFL alternative research estimates. Lastly, coming to NSE, the Nifty 50 is what we're tracking. It is likely that Shriram Finance could go ahead and replace UPL in the Nifty 50 index. So all of these announcements are expected in February itself. The implementation could either be end of Feb or in the mid of March.
All right, that will be key to track. Vivek, thanks a lot for getting us all of those details. But moving on now, the union budget is just 3 days away, and Mangalam and Sonal got in touch with participants at the CNBC-TV18 budget ballot box locations in theatres in Mumbai to really understand what their expectations are from the budget this time around. Take a look.
I know it's an interim budget actually this year because it's the last year of the Modi 2.0 government. So hopefully not many major changes to the tax structure, but maybe some rationalization, something expected on the capital gains tax or something. That is what is expected. And maybe something on the new regime. Maybe they can increase the slabs a bit. So I think 2 expectations from the budget side, nothing more.
I'm quite interested in any infrastructure projects that the government of India takes, and I just hope that they keep going on with the infra growth they are currently at right now, and they keep ramping up new roads, better railways, more airports, stuff like that. So I think that's what matters to me right now.
Generally, the government's aim is to shift to the new tax regime. And shifting to the new tax regime, corporates are already shifting. But for the individual, I think they should make 2 or 3 concessions. Firstly, it is for the medical benefit and for the retirement. If they bring 2 things in the new tax regime, I think it would be very successful.
And you can also share your budget expectations with us on our website by scanning the QR code on your screen or by logging in to CNBC-TV18.com budget. Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch. Straight to some newsroom developments in terms of the courtrooms. The Delhi High Court has passed an order on the anti-profiteering laws under the GST, and the court, quashing the appeal from Gillette, Phillips as well as others, has also held that the statutory provision cannot be struck down on the grounds of possibility of abuse. It's a technical matter concerning business. Ashmit is here on the phone line joining us with all the details and the perspective on this particular development. Tell us, Ashmit.
Well, just to add some color to this dispute, this was a petition filed by various companies, more than 50 of them. The companies included the likes of HUL, Nestle, Johnson & Johnson, Abbott, Patanjali, Jubilant Foods. The concern that they had raised was on account of the provision, Section 171 of the GST Act, which provided for an anti-profiteering mechanism. The concern that had been raised amongst others is that there was a lack of a mechanism. There was a lack of a system for computation of the quantum of profiteering, and this is what was contested amongst other things before the Delhi High Court. The dispute lasted for a better part of the last 3 years. The decision came earlier today. The Delhi High Court has very clearly held that it has upheld the anti-profiteering provision of the GST. It has set aside the application that had been filed by so many companies that had challenged the constitutionality. The Delhi High Court held that the provision cannot be struck down simply because the ground of abuse has been made out. In fact, the Delhi High Court held that Section 171 mandates that the tax that has been foregone needs to be passed on to the next in line, and that this is in public interest, it's an issue of consumer welfare, and that no such constitutional violations have been found. With that, the Delhi High Court also held that while there may be no fixed formula that is provided for in the mechanism, the power for computation of the interest does lie, in fact, with the centre. And with this, the Delhi High Court granting its legal sanction to the anti-profiteering provision. The story, however, may not be over. Let's keep in mind that this is an order coming in from the Delhi High Court. The petitioners, over 50 of them, do have the option of challenging this before the apex court. Back to you.
All right, Ashmay, thanks a lot for bringing us all of those details. Moving on to some more important news now, and this is on the global front. 3 U.S. troops were killed and dozens were wounded after an unmanned aerial drone attack on U.S. forces stationed in northeastern Jordan near the Syrian border. Biden has blamed Iran-backed groups for the attack. This is the first deadly strike against U.S. forces since the Israel-Hamas war erupted in October. We have NBC's Courtney with all of the details.
3 U.S. soldiers were killed in Jordan when a drone packed with explosives struck a shelter where troops were sleeping.
We lost 3 brave souls in an attack on one of our bases. And I asked you for complete silence for all 3 of those falls.
President Biden blaming radical Iran-backed militant groups operating in the region. More than 30 U.S. troops were also wounded, according to 2 U.S. officials, including several who were medevaced out because of the severity of their injuries. A spokesperson for the Jordanian government denied the attack occurred on their soil, but U.S. officials insist it was in Jordan. This is the first time U.S. troops have been killed during the more than 3 months of assaults by Iranian-backed militia groups. Now more than 160 attacks against bases with Americans in Iraq and Syria since October 17th. And just 1 week ago, multiple U.S. troops were injured when a barrage of ballistic missiles hit Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin releasing a statement saying he is outraged and deeply saddened. The attack targeted a small outpost near the Syrian border known as Tower 22, according to U.S. officials. The troops there work with and advise the Jordanian military. But it also supports the U.S. garrison on the other side of the border in Syria called Al-Tanf. We visited that base 5 years ago. The troops there tasked with keeping ISIS in check. But the entire area has a much bigger mission. Situated along a highway that runs from Tehran to Baghdad and all the way to Damascus, the troops there are cutting off a land bridge for Iran to move weapons and fighters into Syria.
All right, so those details on the tension there. But crude prices, they have surged to an 8-week high as tensions continue to rise. In the Red Sea, Manisha is right here to give us details on the crude price development and the outlook going forward. Manisha.
Well, the bulls in crude are definitely back as we're looking at 8-week highs in sense of prices, and the price increase has been to the tune of 4.5% in the past 1 week. And also when you look at the prices in the month of January, we've gained up by 10%, and this is on the back of 10% decline in crude oil prices in 2023. So we seem to have recovered all of that loss in the first 1 month of this year itself. Well, a couple of supportive factors. One is the Houthi missiles have hit Trafigura oil tankers on Red Sea. That is adding premium to prices. Also, the drone attacks on Russian oil facilities have led to many of these refining facilities under repair, so they have gone into maintenance. There are now supply concerns coming in on the surface here. Markets also are looking at the strong U.S. economic data. The Chinese demand is expected to pick up. The Chinese stimulus measures have been supportive. So have been the money managers, which have made the net long positions increase on a week-on-week, on a month-on-month basis in sense of futures and options in sense of crude. The markets will now watch out for the FOMC meeting for 30th and 31st of January. It also is the OPEC and allies meeting on 1st of Feb, and that is where we will get the further direction from.
All right, Manisha, thanks a lot for bringing us all of those details on the crude price move. Those are Adani Green's numbers flashing on your screen. The stock was anyway doing quite well, but it has moved up even higher after the numbers came through. The revenue is up around 17% on a year-over-year basis. If you look at the profit, that has almost doubled. The EBITDA has seen a big jump as well. By the way, this stock in Jan is up around 9% or so. If you pull up a 6-month kind of chart, it's up almost 60% on Adani Green. So the margin also, by the way, huge expansion coming in. It's at 72% versus what we had last year was around 43%. So those are Adani Green's numbers. We'll get into a short break now. But on the other side, we'll talk about the political picture. the JDU President Nitish Kumar has rejoined the NDA party and has sworn in as Bihar's Chief Minister. We will get you more on this in just a bit. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Business Lunch, and let's bring you some news from the political front now. Janata Dal United's President Nitish Kumar takes oath as the Chief Minister of Bihar for a record 9th time, and this comes just hours after he announced his decision of switching sides from the opposition group INDIA to now rejoining the NDA with the BJP government. The switch comes just 18 months after he joined hands with the opposition.
All right, let's move to some sporting action over the weekend and to some news coming in from the world of cricket then. And remember that England pulled off a remarkable victory against the host country, India, in the first test match in Hyderabad. Now, the Indians, who had taken a first inning lead of more than 100 runs, fell short of the 231 runs target and were bowled out for 202 on the 4th day of the test match. Now, English left-arm spinner Tom Hartley, who was, remember, making his test debut, dismantled the Indian batting order with an impressive 7-wicket haul. With this victory, remember, to seal a historic win for Ben Stokes' side, who have now taken a 1-0 lead in the 5-match series between India and England.
All right, that is all of the action that we're tracking this afternoon. And with that, we're completely out of time on this edition of Business Lunch. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We have Mid-Cap Radar after this short break.